without having to go through legal stuff, or?
Well, there is, with the church, you can get annulment.
Oh, right. Okay.
So basically, if the marriage isn't consummated, you can go to the Pope, ask for an annulment, and then it's like the marriage never happened.
Huh. Even if you spent all of the money that you had in this world on your perfect wedding.
Yeah, exactly. You could
Too
still
bad
get
didn't
it.
happen.
Too bad it didn't happen. It's annulled in the eyes of God, in the church, Catholic Church. Anyways, so yeah.
So then who are these people who want to know if you consummated your marriage? Who gives a shit?
None of them are Catholic.
Huh.
But that's the piece, though, is that, and because of all this pressure, before all of this pressure and performance about consummating the marriage, I didn't have sex for 2 whole weeks.
She says at the end of a quarantine pandemic, and some people are like, fuck you, guys.
I'm sorry for everybody who hasn't had sex in a really long time because you didn't have a partner at the time. I feel for you. I'm sorry. But I got married and I didn't have sex for 2 whole weeks. And just I couldn't. My body refused. Like, I broke out in a yeast infection. I was my body was like, no, we are not consummating no marriage. Nope, it's not happening. No, I'm not having anybody. Weird. You made it weird. It's not sexy. It's not kinky. It's not fun. No, this feels obligatory, and I'm not producing an heir. So it's not happening.
Wow, that's wild. Your body just wasn't into it.
No.
Did you have to coax yourself eventually? Like,
well, yeah, I told my husband that if he ever wanted to have sex with me again, to never mention consummation of the marriage. He was smart. He never mentioned it again. So these are some of the things. And then there's some other interesting things, data collecting, that I've done that's been fascinating as well, that all of a sudden my people are hiring me more. My following has increased. More women trust me because now I'm no longer a threat because I'm off the market as far as they're concerned. This perceived ideas that I'm now trustworthy, more trustworthy. It's incredible, fascinating. And, we could have probably a conversation a year from now, and then I'm sure I'll have collected more data and we can show up and have a conversation about all the other weird things that people are doing because they have no idea why they're doing it. Like, that's what makes it a cult, right? When we don't know why we are doing the things we're doing, behaving, saying, acting, it's because we've been brainwashed, and been brainwashed on an epic proportion from a societal standpoint in North America anyways. Like, I can only talk from a North American perspective. But that's the case.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's completely indoctrination, and it starts so young, like, I'm just thinking about like the ways that we are still, like, as women, people who grew up female know that even if you grow up with, like, the coolest parents, or like counterculture household, or, subversive friend groups or whatever, you are still being constantly messaged that your inherent value lies with how attractive you are to men specifically. Like, your toys are makeup and dressing up and dolls that look pretty and baby dolls that you get to mother and household skills, like, I go for a walk almost every day through the town that I live in, and along the way there's a house that has some kids' toys out front, and the one kids toy that is always set up in the same place is the little like play school kitchen set.
Yeah, yeah.
That a little girl has that because little boys don't play with that. And all of these things about growing up. And then with the Disney films, like, geez.
Oh.
It's all geared toward either attracting a man by looking pretty or showing off your domesticity and what a great wifey you would make or what a great mommy you would make. And that is, although there's always getting to be more and more messaging to young girls that they are worth more than that there are other options, the prevalent messaging is still so focused on marketing yourself as potential wife material.
Yes. And here's something that I've always found really fascinating. I remember going into my dentist's office years ago and having a full-on argument with the dental receptionist because around marital status. I'm like, why do you need to know my marital status? Will my marital status for my teeth, will my teeth change if I'm married? Do married people have different teeth than single people? Like, why do you need to know my marital status? And this was when I remember the first time that I realized that marital status is a check mark on everything you fill out.
Good point. Yeah.
What's your marital status? What's your marital status? Every document, what's your marital status? Every appointment, what's your marital status? And yet, those have no bearing. A lot of those documents have no bearing, doesn't change your interaction.
Right. Good point.
So that just tells you how important and how ingrained it is on a societal level that marriage is valued over single.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't get a whole lot of ads online for stuff that I don't like anymore. I've pretty much trained them to like, my entire like mid-20s to mid-30s was spent trying to train Facebook that I don't give a shit about engagement ring advertisements or wedding planning advertisements. Please stop trying to sell these things to me. And I feel like it finally, once I hit 35, they were like, oh, we give up. She's an old maid. Whatever, spinster, nobody cares about you, but like it's so so important to your identity. This decision, although it has no bearing on anything except people who are trying to sell you wedding rings and flower bouquets or whatever things they try to sell you when they want you to get married. Yeah. Oh wait, no, now they've stopped selling marital stuff to me so much. Now it's like children's car seats. Because I should have young children by now.
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, that's a good question for you. Have you started getting people pressuring you about when you're going to start having babies yet?
No, but I feel like I've done that, been there, done that because of my age. So I'm like 46 and I had my tubes tied when I was 23.
Wow, congratulations. That's hard to do when you're that young.
I fought really hard, very hard around, I was like badass around that. And we can have another conversation all about the weirdness about that.
Yeah.
And the cult of being a mom and a baby breeder and all of those things. So I've spent a lot of time having very super bizarre random conversations with people who are very angry at me for choosing not to have babies.
Wow.
Complete strangers, like yelling at me. Like, how dare you? How dare you choose to not have children when there's so many people who can't have children and you chose not to?
What? It's not that I've never heard people say things like that, but it still every time confuses me so much. It's like the debate that is constantly going on in the States about student loan debts, right? And because like there's a whole lot of people that want student loan debt to be canceled because it's effectively crippling generations of people in America. And the one thing that I like always have to hear some older person say in those conversations is, well, I had to pay off my student loans, so you should have to too. And it's like, that doesn't, as far as like logic goes, that is not an argument. That doesn't make sense. It's the same thing with having kids. Like, so there
Well,
are a
I
lot of
think,
people who can't, so I have to? That doesn't follow. Sorry.
yeah, and it doesn't follow, but it's again putting your nose up at the value of a woman. Like, I chose to not have a baby, then what's the point of your existence? Right?
Fuck.
Your
Ugh.
existence is here to have a baby, and of course be married to have a baby. Like,
Yeah.
that's an important part of that sequence of events. And so this is what I've taken away from, like, deeply. I knew that it existed, but until I decided to get married and do this experiment and be vocal about this experiment, because I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating on all of these, like, brainwashed people that I know really love and adore me, but yet they can't help themselves in doing these things because of this programming. And I'm always so fascinated on why people do what they do, that this is part of this great experiment. And that we can then have conversations. Like, even this conversation is opening up the possibility for the audience who are listening to be like, did I squeal when my friend told me that they got engaged? And did I assume that they got engaged because it was this big Hollywood romantic, like, I found the one and my soulmate is completing me? Is like that why I'm so happy for them? Am I happy for them because I'm supposed to be happy for them? Like, what is the reasons that you are behaving the way you are about somebody else's life? Because it's really none of your business. Like, why we're so invested in other people's choices, it's really ridiculous at the end of the day. Like, who I choose to spend time with, not spend time with, what I choose to do with my body, not do with my body, like, all those things really has no effect on anybody else's life. And yet there's so much, what's the word I'm looking at? There's so much dedication to having these systems in place, and that person is behaving in a certain way, and the anger and the frustration and the uncomfortableness within yourself if somebody isn't following that rule, whether we're talking about marriage or anything, is really an indicator. That's an opportunity for us to look at, why is this so important to me, and where did this brainwashing come from? Because if you weren't brainwashed, you wouldn't actually be responding this way.
Yeah, I am totally 100% certain that there has been at least one instance in my life where someone I know told me that she got engaged and I did the squeal thing. Even though, like, for me, that's not something that's ever been important to me, like whether I ever get married or not. It's just not, I haven't seen it personally as the pinnacle of my life, so I haven't oriented my life in that direction, but I still understand the script that I'm supposed to follow, which is when a woman tells you that she's gotten engaged, you are supposed to do the high-pitched squealing and then grab her hands, do a little like fast foot motion dance thing, hug her, and then ask to see the ring. That's what you're supposed to do. I've seen it done a million times, and I am certain that I have done it with someone, although I, like, not actually recalling any specific instances, but like I just know that I did it because it's what you do.
Yeah.
It's the script.
Yeah.
And it's been the script for a long time. Although it's interesting, like, I don't have a whole lot of research in front of me, but I have been kind of randomly doing a bunch of historical diving recently, for various reasons. And I did learn not so long ago that a lot of the customs that we have in America and Canada, specifically for weddings, came directly from the marriage of Queen Victoria to Prince Albert. And that was in like 18 60s, 70s, somewhere around there, I think. They had a very long